I own Rural Therapy Solutions, so it's a private practice. I go into people's homes and I provide occupational therapy services. I specialize in neurologic conditions, things like Parkinson's disease, strokes, Alzheimer's, dementia, specifically the behavioral side, things like anxiety, wandering, resistance to bathing and dressing, and things like that. And you can see here, this is an example of some exercises we do in the home. I love being an occupational therapist. OTs are really nice because we look at the whole picture, the whole person. When I come in and do an assessment, we're going over, number one, what your goals are and what you're struggling with. And then we look at the physical assessment, how your arms and your legs move, strength, balance. I check your vision. We look at cognition and processing speed, things like that, if it's applicable. We look at routines and habits, what you're doing throughout your day, and what you need to be able to do to live your day-to-day the way you want to. And then also the psychosocial, what you're nervous about, what matters to you, what you're afraid of losing, things like that. So before we go to the next slide, which has some statistics from the CDC, today we're talking about falls, specifically falls within older adults, right? But why do we stress fall prevention in older adults specifically? If we think about the whole lifespan, think about a 5-year-old running around at Christmas. How many times do those kids fall, running through everyone's legs and then pop right back up? Or even me, I'm in my 30s now, and I go to the gym and we do step ups and all these things with weight. I'm not super nervous about tripping and falling, or even if I did, I'd get back up, hopefully, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So why are we so worried about it in the older adult population? If we get down, can we get back up? Are we stuck there, right? Nobody wants to call the fire department and have to have them haul you up, and then they're like, you need to go to the hospital, and then maybe you don't, fractures, I heard, so we're going to talk about that as well. You're more likely to injure yourself, right? You watch those kids, they just bounce right back off from the floor, right? When we're older, that doesn't typically happen, right? Or you see, those little kids are so agile. When we get older, sometimes we lose that reaction speed, right, of the reactive stepping and things like that for our balance. So this is all from the CDC. So it's important we know 1 out of every 10 falls results in an injury that can cause an older adult to restrict their activities or to seek medical attention from the healthcare system. Each year, there are about 3 million emergency department visits due to falls in older adults, and you know how it is sitting in the emergency room nowadays. It's hours, right? And so it's not fun to do that. Each year, there are 1 million fall-related hospitalizations among older adults. And then in 2019, this is where we have our fractures. 83% of hip fracture deaths and 88% of emergency department visits and hospitalizations for hip fractures were caused by falls. So it's not just, most people don't just randomly break their hip from bumping into something or whatever. It's from a fall. So if we can prevent those falls, we can prevent the hip fractures. Each year, nearly 319,000 older people are hospitalized for hip fractures, and falls are also the most common cause of TBIs. So that's traumatic brain injuries, things like concussions. If you're on blood thinners, you're more likely to have a stroke. That's considered a traumatic brain injury. So it is very scary. My whole presentation isn't going to be scary facts about falling, but this is why it's so important, right? This is why we talk about it. Why, when you go to the doctor every year, they say, have you fallen in the last 12 months? When you go to therapy, every time we sit you down and we say, are you in any pain? Have you fallen? Everyone keeps asking because we really want to prevent these falls. What conditions make you more likely to fall as an older adult? So lower body weakness is one. I would say it's less of a concern. I think people think it's the number one thing that makes people fall. I would say it's more of our balance and things like that, but lower body weakness leads to worse balance. So weaker legs, things like that. Vitamin D deficiency is one that people don't think about very much. So that's something your doctor can test you for. You might need a supplement. Yeah, vitamin D deficiency. Obviously, difficulties with walking and balance. This can be from a lot of different things. It can be weakness. It can be things like Parkinson's, MS, scoliosis, cancer treatments, diabetes. There's lots of things, vertigo, that can affect our balance. The use of medicine. So this is one I really want you guys to think about, and think about what you're taking now. So like tranquilizers, sedatives, antidepressants. Usually these are medications that your doctor says, try to take these at night before you go to bed, which makes sense because, or it's the ones that have the labels that say, don't operate heavy machinery before you know how this affects you, because it can make you dizzy, lightheaded. It can affect your balance, your thinking. And even like over-the-counter medicines, like cold medicines and things like that. So take a look through your medications, see if you need those, or if they, sometimes people go to the ER and things like that, and they're prescribed medications and then they just never go off of them. You know, the doctor's not really looking or something. They just continue taking them. There can be other options to put you on, or maybe we need to lower your dose, things like that. But you can talk with your doctor, you can talk with your pharmacist, you can ask, are there any medications that I can get rid of, or do you think any of my medications might react together to have side effects? Vision problems is another one. So it's not just like you need glasses and you can't see the letters when they're asking you to repeat them. It's that, but it's also seeing double vision, or sometimes our eyes aren't completely working together in a timely fashion to create that one image in front of us, and we don't always perceive that. So if I look over here and I see one thing, I would say, no, I don't have double vision. I don't see two images. But sometimes if I go and I look over that way and I have this kind of disorienting feeling or brain fog or something like that, our eyes can be struggling to create that image. You know, our two eyes need to work together to create that one image. So that's something that you can address with your eye doctor. We should be going to the eye doctor every year. I don't know if everyone's doing that. I barely go every year, so, but that is something that can be a goal, especially as we get older, our eyes change, and we need to keep track of that. Foot pain or poor footwear. So foot pain can be neuropathy, arthritis, all that fun stuff. Poor footwear, we're going into summer. People like their Crocs and their sandals, which you could view as a challenge to your balance if you wanted to, but we would prefer you just wear sturdy shoes, you know, the slip-in Skechers, ones that are sturdy, that have a back that won't fall off your feet or get caught on something. Home hazards, we're going to talk about this in a little bit as well, but things like broken or uneven steps, rugs, clutter that you can fall over. And usually it's a multitude of these things. It's usually not just one thing, right? It's usually, I have an uneven step and I have neuropathy and I have some balance problems, and that's why I fell. Let's say we weren't able to prevent the fall. After the fall, most falls usually don't actually cause injuries. So that's good to know to build our confidence. Even though they don't all result in injury, about 37% of those who fall report an injury that required medical treatment, or they restricted their activity throughout the day for at least one day. And these injuries can make it hard for you to get around and do everyday activities or live on your own. So falls can cause broken bones, like we talked about, the hip fractures. Also, when you fall on an outstretched hand, if you imagine locking your elbow out and falling, the amount of force that goes in there, that's usually how we fracture our wrists. You can also fracture ankles. When you fall, you can break ribs, and those usually they don't really do anything for. It just has to heal on its own, and it kind of just sucks for a little bit. Falls can also cause head injuries, which is why whenever you go, they say, did you fall? And you say yes, and they said, okay, did you hit your head? Because they need to know if they need to do imaging. If you're on blood thinners especially, we need to be looking for things like stroke or bleeding that's not resolving. Also, concussions can last for years and years and years. It's not just a short amount of time. A lot of people have chronic symptoms from concussions, from hitting their heads. And then many people who fall, even if they're not injured, can become afraid of falling. So this makes people sometimes restrict their activities, restrict the amount of things they do during the day. This is kind of what we're talking about here. It can decrease your quality of life. People who fall are more likely to be depressed. And if you remember, one of the medications that can cause, more likely to cause falls is antidepressants. So that's kind of like a little bit of a cycle there. It also increases your likelihood of falling again. So, or if you haven't fallen, but you're just scared of falling, you are more likely to fall. So if I see a patient who comes in and they have weak legs and maybe their balance isn't great, but they're walking and they're kind of sidestepping and catching themselves, I'm less worried about them falling than I am the person with the walker who's very scared of falling, because those people tend to do the plank, the domino, where we just kind of get rigid and fall because we get really nervous. It can also lead to social isolation. People think, well, if I don't leave my house, then maybe I'm more safe, I'm more familiar with my house, maybe I'm less likely to fall. But over 50% of falls happen within people's houses. And it can affect how you walk in the future, which can lead to more falls. So how do we prevent these falls? Scheduling regular vision and hearing checkups is a big one. Even if you don't feel like your vision has changed, it's important to schedule those. Exercise programs that build balance and strength. So we're going to talk about some exercises in a little bit. Preferably exercises that involve walking or where you're standing, you're weight bearing through your legs, as well as looking in different directions. So not getting in one zone. Reviewing medications with a doctor to reduce side effects. Even if you don't feel dizzy, even if you don't have lightheadedness, people with chronic dizziness don't actually perceive that they're dizzy. So I hear different things. They'll turn and they'll say, whoa, or something, or they'll kind of go like this. I'll say, oh, are you dizzy? And they'll say, no. And they'll say, what's happening? And they're kind of just like, it doesn't feel right. My brain feels fuzzy. Or sometimes they say nothing, but you know that their balance is off because they're turning and they're getting a little bit off balance. Making the home safer by removing clutter, securing rugs, improving lighting. We're going to go over a few examples of things you can do there. Consider mobility aids, canes, walkers. If you're doing that, you really need to be seeing an OT or a PT to be fit for those things and make sure you're getting the appropriate one. Something interesting that they found was older adults were less resistant to modifying their home than they were to using mobility aids like walkers. So I think there's kind of this perception that you're going to go into someone's home and they're never going to give up their rugs because they love their rugs and nobody's ever getting rid of their rugs, right? But they were actually more likely to do that. But if you suggested a walker or something like that, they were more resistant to it. So it's something interesting about the psychology. And then there's technology, things like the medical alert systems. Your iPhones or smartphones can sometimes detect falls, Apple Watches. You can also get ones that are set to call like your daughter or an emergency contact instead of just calling 911, because some people get nervous that they're going to accidentally press it and 911 shows up, which happens a lot, and it's okay. They're not mad at you. So modifying your environment, those resistive strips that you can put in like your tub, they're black usually. They're like sandpaper almost, and they usually stick down, and you can like rub them in. So those are nice to increase the friction of a space, especially in the bathroom. But you can put it on stairs as well as a good one on the edge of the stair. You need to make sure you're focusing on cleaning the space before and then really pressing it down in there and then checking it every so often to see if it's rolling. But that's a good one. These motion activated lights, you can put them in your hallway. They don't have to be plugged in. You can charge them. So it's like a little hanger thing. I don't know what to call this, but the light fits in there and it's got a sticky thing on this side. So you can put it at the base of your, like in your hallway and things like that, and then recharge it. But then it's nice because if you have to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, we really don't want a bunch of lights on because that affects your sleep, right? So if we can get these while you're walking past them, they'll turn on automatically, and then they'll turn off after a certain amount of time. U-bars is what I call this. It's like a grab bar that goes under your mattress. Some of them just go under your mattress and then it's like a U-bar. Some of them have legs that go down to the floor. I prefer the ones that have legs that go down. A lot of people will say they feel like they're slipping from their bed, so they're coming out of bed, and then especially if you have a soft mattress, you feel like you're just sliding, especially in the middle of the night. This is really nice because you can hold it to get out of bed, and then once you're there, you can use it to steady yourself to stand up. They're also relatively inexpensive, so that is nice. And then grab bars. So we always prefer the permanent grab bars, the ones that you drill in, screw in to the wall, that are permanent. You can put them anywhere that you want. Typically, you don't want them straight up and down like this because it's awkward to hold on to that, especially if you have arthritis here. You usually want them at like a slight angle so you can just put your hand on top of them. They have those sticky ones that are like suction. Those are not preferred, obviously, because if you pull on it and it comes off, now you're really likely to fall, right? If you use them, if you don't have another option, you have to clean the space really well, stick it on, make sure it's there, and then every single day, you gotta wiggle it to make sure it's not coming loose every time before you use it. Let's go ahead and practice some of the exercises. I would say the most important thing to practice is doing sit-to-stands, and I like them because you can modify them. You can make them a lot harder or you can make it easier. But before we even try to stand, first we're going to practice weight shifting. So as you're sitting in your chair, go ahead and put your butt all the way back against the chair. Your feet are hopefully on the floor. If they're not, it's okay. You know, is what it is. Good. So we're back in our chair. You can also imagine you're in your recliner and you're like being consumed by cushions and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to pee right now. And now we have to get out. So here's what typically happens is we're all the way back and people are trying to get out and they're pushing themselves back and they're saying, I can't get out. This is awful. So what we need to do is we need to get our weight onto our feet. We also need to scoot to the edge of the chair. So to do that, some people can just use their hands and get their butt up and put their butt on the edge of the chair. Some people need to weight shift. So we're going to practice the weight shifting. You're going to shift your weight to one hip, to one butt cheek, okay? And then you're going to slide the one that doesn't have any weight on it forward. Now shift your weight to the other side and slide your butt forward. Yes, you can step out as you do it too. Yep, you've got good strength, which is good. So now you're on the edge, but you're securely on the edge, right? You guys have, so the first thing we're going to do is get your weight forward. Act like you're head diving for a target on the floor. We're not standing up yet. We're just seeing if we can get our weight onto our feet. And then as you do it, your butt will start coming up off the chair. And then the easiest version, yes, of this will be to use your hands and stand up with your legs. Good. And then we go back down. You stick your butt out really far to sit down, right? To make it harder, you can put your arms forward. I like that one the best because it helps with the weight shift. Yeah, you can stretch forward. If you can't stand, another way to do this is to just stretch forward and feel your weight go forward. That's a good thing. To make it harder, you can put your hands, you guys knew this was coming, across your chest and then stand that way. Good. And then to make it way, way hard, only do this if you feel secure, is you can put one foot in front of the other with your hands across here. And it's harder. You want to alternate legs because you're primarily using one leg to stand up. So it's strengthening whichever leg you're using. So you're standing here. She wants to know how to sit back down safely the best way. So the people who are really nervous, which I understand, will do this, and then they'll get their legs all the way back here, which is fine. You can back up so that you feel the chair against your legs. Yep. And then you want to put your hands back and sit. Thank you. You can also think about sticking your butt out. If you stood from here and you didn't move, you should be able to stick your butt out and sit without backing up, right? So it depends on your balance and your confidence level. Now we're going to talk about how to get up off the floor. So Rhonda's going to be our demo lady who is going onto the ground.
I have 3 goals in life. Get off the floor, get off the toilet, and have my own teeth.
Those are great goals. I love those goals. So Rhonda is on her back right now, laying down. Typically when people fall, they'll kind of fall back and on their side a little bit, or they're sliding off of something and then they're kind of in a sitting position. But we'll go from here. Now this does depend on what you got going on. Like if your shoulder doesn't work at all, then we got some other stuff going on that we have to talk about. But in general, Rhonda has just fallen. First, she's going to take a deep breath. She's on the floor. She cannot fall any farther than the floor, right? She's not going to fall again from the floor. So that's the first thing. You're going to look around for a chair. So pretend I'm not here. Well, you can pretend I'm here. I'm going to be nice. Here's a chair. And I'll bring it. You want a sturdy chair if you can. Now you are going to get onto your side or your stomach. So this depends on who you are. When you get to your side, a lot of times we see people start kicking their feet trying to go somewhere and they can't get anywhere. You need to turn your head to the side that you're rolling to. I would also suggest getting the arm that you're rolling to out from under you and getting it out to the side so that you're not like this. People get like this and then they're just kind of stuck. So get that arm out. You're going to look to the side that you're rolling. Your shoulder will follow, your hip will follow, and then your leg will follow.
Okay.
You can go either side.
I prefer this side.
Okay, go for it. Good. So now she's in a supported position and she's already getting up to her knees because she's very strong, which is great. Good job. Okay. She has a chair in front of her. If you are there, you should be standing behind the chair, right? All right. She'll get into half kneel and then she'll fully stand. You can also, I'm just going to do it really quick. If you have knee stuff and you can't do this, as long as someone's holding back there, you can push with your hands and just stand and walk up. And if you're worried about your balance, you can just keep holding on and swivel to sit. So everyone has their own things where we would have to maybe modify that a little bit. What if there's no chair? Great. Find something else. Couch, wall, stairs are a good one. Another person. Use your Alexa to call 911. Obviously, if we can't get up or if we know they've hit their head, they've hurt something, they're crying, we can't get them up, we're calling for medical people to come get them up. And that is a good point. If you have trouble with your hands, you can use your arms on the chair, or some people don't like this when you're crawling, you can do on your arms. You have more strength because you're using your shoulders more. There are also devices, especially if someone falls a lot or they're like heavy and you can't get them back up. If they have cognitive things like dementia, there are devices that you can use that will help get them up. So there's one that's like a backboard that has like little wings. And so you get that right there under their butt. And then you have to help them sit up. Well, okay. So they can either try to roll over. I have a patient who has one of these, and we've had to do a few different things. And then the back of it comes up, and then this part comes up. So they're like sitting in a chair essentially. You could also get the back up and help support them up, but they have to have the strength to get over there. That's the tricky thing about those things. There are some other versions that you can like construct under the person to do it. Some of these things are really expensive, so you can always just call 911 and have people. Stairs, I would say, are one of the best options because there's usually like a railing and it's stepping up, so you got options. But yes, for the new shoes, that is a good point. I said we need to make sure we have shoes that don't slip and that are resistive and things like that. Make sure you get used to them, or maybe talk with a physical therapy person or the shoe people there, because if you're used to shuffling your feet or kind of sliding your feet or anything like that, if you get those shoes, they're going to stick and your whole body's just going to go forward. Nobody go home and practice falling down, right? We don't do that. But yeah, if it happens, think about these things. Again, you don't want to freeze. Think about when they say like drunk drivers are less likely to get hurt in an accident. It's because they're all loosey-goosey. Don't freeze up. In that vein, avoid straight lines, so you are much less likely to break a bone if you fall kind of like this than if you fall like this, or if you've got your legs sticking straight up, the force is going to go to that hip or that wrist. Spread impact across your body and land on the meat, which is your butt, okay? That's where all the fat is, right? So when you're landing, try not to land on one hip. Try to land on both hips on your butt, okay? And then protect your head. If you just go like this, you shouldn't be hitting anything back here with your head, usually, okay? Don't go practice it. There are sometimes clinics, like therapy clinics, where they practice falling on big cushy mats and things. So if you're interested in that, let me know. But these are some things to think about.